マリア、戻ってこねえな。またローザおばさんに叱られてるのかな。
Ever since they met Maria at the airport, she'd been romping around, chatting about Halloween the whole time. But maybe she'd cut loose a little too much, acting a little too boisterous on the plane, on the boat, and during lunch, because Rosa had cautioned her several times. At times like that, Aunt Rosa Aunt Rosa tended not to scold her much in front of people. More often, she would take Maria aside and scold her alone. So, since Maria had been called off somewhere, they figured she must be getting scolded. When they looked at the clock, they realized it was almost 6 o'clock. Of course, they couldn't imagine she'd been getting scolded all this time. Maybe it was time for some anime she watched every week to start. She probably hadn't left the mansion's parlor.
ひょっとすると、バトラ様がお目覚めになって、一緒に遊ばれているのかもしれませんね。
マリアちゃんにとって、バトラ君は新しい友達のような感じだったろうからね。そのバトラ君と飛行場でハロウィンごっこをするのが、きっととても楽しかったんだよ。
She played Halloween.
バトラもずいぶんはしゃいでたな。
Like the band? Or well, that's Halloween, but anyway.
あいつ、図体はでかくなったってのに、中身は昔から全然変わらねえぜ。
そうですね。バトラ様は、6年前のままでいてくださった気がします。
シャノンは、6年前のバトラ君のこと、覚えてるんだ。
ええ、何しろ、大層お元気な方でしたから。
僕も、6年前に4人で遊んだことを思い出すよ。シャノンは、だいぶお姉さん風だったね。
そうだな。今よりしっかりしてた気がするぜ。
それは、あの頃は身の程をわきまえておりませんでしたもので、いろいろと失礼いたしました。
Hey, Master Protoss, thanks for stopping by over on the kick side. It's a bit weird that, they mentioned this. Where was it? Because it was 6 years ago, right? 6 years ago. Shannon is like 16 or so right now. I believe it was either 15 or 16. And George is like, haha, the four of us were playing 6 years ago, and you acted like a big sister back then. When she was 10 or 9. That is kind of weird. But anyway.
いいよ。そんな礼儀云々は。仕事中はともかく、こうして休み時間に過ごす時の僕らは、あの頃から変わらない。仲良しで居続けたいね。
そうだぜ。使用人のシャノンとオフの時の作用は使い分けていいだろう。奴隷じゃないんだぜ。使用人の仕事をしてるだけじゃないかよ。私はシャノンとは、サヨとは一番古い友人だと思ってるぜ。
That's an interesting line. Depending on whether you're the servant or off duty, you aren't a slave. I mean, like she's correct, but a lot of these workers tend to forget that. A lot of these servants of the Ushinomiya manor tend to forget that. Like, well, yes, they are servants in the sense that they are employed as servants. As far as we know, they're not like literal slaves. As in, they can retire, they can quit whenever they want. Unless there's some contract that they sign where they're forced to work a certain amount of time, or maybe Kinzo has them bound to some magical contract. I don't know. But in general, as far as we know, from what we've been told, there have been people that have worked at the Ushinomiya Manor and who have left it because they were done.
ありがとうございます。お嬢様。
It seemed that Shannon understood the hidden meaning behind Jessica's words. After all, she'd heard a bit heard a bit about Jessica and Cannon's history from both of them. Apparently, George had heard something of that history too. He walked towards the window and looked up at the darkening rainy sky.
カノン君はまだ幼いのに考え方が少し背伸びしてるところがあると思うんです。
いや、もうよしてくれよ。
That sprite of Jessica is really fucking funny. When she has her teeth out and she looks super awkward. Anyway.
まあ私も雰囲気に流されてたところはあったと思うしさ。まあシャノンたちのことを見てちょっと羨ましいとか思って気がせいていたところもあったかもしれねえな。私のことなんかどうでもいいだろ。それよりジョージ兄さんたちの方はどういう感じなんだよ。だいぶいい感じなんだろ。
うん。とてもいい感じだよ。
Shannon was lost for words, her face red, while George answered brightly and immediately. That carefree attitude made it easy to see that their relationship was proceeding so perfectly, it'd make anyone envious.
焼けるぜ。ってことはシャノンもそのうち寿退社ってわけなんだ。
どうなんでしょう。私には
どうなんだろうね。僕にもわからないね。
George laughed teasingly, as though pressing Shannon for an answer. It was probably the way they usually flirted when they were alone. Jessica could only smile bitterly and say yes, yes, thank you, that's enough.
僕には夢がある。それは一国一城の主になりたいというビジネス的な野望だけじゃない。生涯を共にできる伴侶と幸せな家族を築きたいという夢もある。子供は最低でも2人欲しいとか、家族で一緒にできるスポーツをしたいねとか、他にもいろいろ。そんな話をよくシャノンとはするよ。こんなことを話すといつもシャノンには気が早いですねと笑われるんだけど、僕はこの年のうちからもうなぜか落ち着いた老後のことを考えてしまうんだよ。元気に成長した子供たちと駆け回る孫たちと、そういうものに囲まれていつまでもシャノンと2人ゆっくりと余生を送れたらなって。
そりゃ確かに気の早い話だぜ。でもなんていうのか、ジョージ兄さんらしい話だな。
そんな家族に囲まれたらさぞ素敵でしょうね。私が思い描いていた理想の家族もそんな感じだったと思います。
To Shannon, who'd been raised in an orphanage, that harmonious image of a family was probably something to be yearned for. And George, who had made an absolute promise to grant that wish for her, may truly have been a fitting person for her to spend her life with. To Jessica, Shannon was a precious friend. George was surely the one most fit to entrust that friend's future to.
まあ水を差すわけじゃねえけど、秀吉おじさんはともかくエヴァおばさんとかどうなわけ？説得は大変じゃないの？
そんなことは誰も気にする必要はないよ。僕が誰を伴侶に選ぶかは誰にもはばかられない。シャノンは僕が幸せにする。それに誰の許可が？
ジョージ兄さんかっこいいぜ。よくそんな恥ずかしいセリフを堂々と。昔の兄さんはそういうキャラじゃなかったと思ったんだけどな。
男子3日合わざれば刮目して待つべしさ。僕だって成長する。 シャノンを幸せにするために、僕はもっともっと勉強して、ふさわしい男に成長するつもりだよ。
Maybe even George realized how embarrassing the words coming out of his mouth were. His face turned very slightly red, and he scratched his head.
ジョージさん。
大丈夫。母さんは確かにごねるかもしれないけど、僕に親族全員に、君が僕の伴侶だと認めさせてみせる。
すっげえな。シャノンが羨ましいぜ、まったく。
New Jessica sprite? I don't think we've seen that face before.
そこまで言ってもらえて、恐縮です。
っていうかよ、私はお邪魔虫なんじゃないかって気がしてきたぜ。席を外した方がいいか？
As Jessica rose with a forced smile on from the bed she'd been sitting on, the phone rang. Before Jessica picked up the receiver, wondering what this could be about, Shannon looked at the clock and jumped. Apparently, she'd spent too much time on her break.
すみません。私、お勤めの時間を忘れておりました。これで失礼します。
Flirting on company time, huh? At the same time Jessica picked up the phone, Shannon began dashing out of the room.
シャノン。
Again, the usual time at the usual place.
失礼します。
もしもし、ジェシカです。ああ、ゲンジさん。はい。シャノンは今そっちに戻ってますよ。私たちが引き止めちゃったんです。叱らないでやってください。ええ。はい。
そっか。もうじき夕飯の準備の時間なんだね。
Genji's like, where the fuck is Shannon? We gotta prepare veal tonight. Many plates were lined up on the counter in the kitchen. Preparations for dinner were proceeding steadily. The number of plates lined up there was 19. That was one more than should have been set up for the annual family conference.
納得できません。どうして私が直接お届けに上がってはならないのですか。
Golda flared up at Genji, paying no heed to the pot that was spitting steam. The master enjoyed eating alone in his study, so his food needed to be served in that room. However, that was something that always happened. Of course, Golda would want to set the table for the master with his own hands, since he'd put his heart and soul into his cooking. However, the master had imposed a strict rule that no one but the servants bearing the golden eagle crest enter his study. So while Golda would be able to greet the master from outside the study, not once had he been granted the honor of carrying his cooking inside. Golda was always irritated by this. Of course, he was a newcomer in terms of years of service. However, he had piled up plenty of experience from his previous jobs, and he was quite confident that he'd be able to perform in front of Kinzo in a manner that would do him no disservice. And yet, simply because he was not permitted to wear the golden eagle, he still hadn't been blessed with this honor. Can you imagine what damage that would do to his pride? You might think tonight was a repeat of that, but it wasn't. Because tonight, there was a person other than the master who wanted their food carried to their room. Apparently, this person is an extremely rare and honored guest, and we've been given strict orders to treat them in the same manner as the master, the head of the family. Golda must have wanted to earn some points by serving this honored guest with his own hands. After all, he was an extremely vain person. If he wasn't qualified to serve the master, then at least a guest of the same rank. He simply couldn't find time during lunch, so Kanun had gone in his place. So, he truly desired to personally serve this person tonight's meal, the best dinner of the year. But Genji had put a stop to that. Something about how Golda didn't wear the golden eagle. After being told once more that he wasn't qualified, Golda lost his patience. So heartrending, Golda. I cannot do anything more than watch like this from the shadows.
熊沢さん、油を売っている暇があったら食堂の準備をしてきてください。テーブルクロスは大丈夫ですか？
これは失礼を。
So, you guys can't hear it, but outside, I heard a truck backing up the second Kumazawa started moving off stream. So I thought the boing went into the, like, beep, 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 or whatever sound that you normally hear. I was like, what the fuck is Yukishi doing with the sound design? When it became her turn to bear his wrath, Kumazawa slid out into the hall.
ベアトリーチェ様は親方様と全く同格のお方です。ルールも親方様のそれと同じものを尊ばなくてはならない。ゴーダは自分の仕事に専念し、親族の皆さんのお相手をするよう。
そのようなお客様相手に、源氏さんならともかくこんな子供を生かせていいのですか？もし何かの粗相があったら失礼にあたります。確かに彼らの年季は長いですが、しかるべきところで修行をしたことがあるわけじゃない。正直に申し上げて、お客様に接する基礎ができていないのです。
Golda spoke bluntly, even though Shannon was standing right there in the kitchen. Shannon was the one whom Genji had ordered to carry dinner to Beatrice's room. By the ranking system among the servants permitted to wear the Golden Eagle, Shannon certainly was the second highest in rank. If the highest ranked Genji went to set the table in Kinzo's room, then it fell to Shannon to set the table in Beatrice's. Golda's pride was always horribly injured by this ranking system. At times like this, he'd speak out bluntly and rudely against Shannon and Kanon. Golda kept raising examples of each of Shannon's failures until now, making a ruckus about how she couldn't do this or was terrible at that. Shannon, who listened to this with her head hung in shame, heard Kanon's voice from behind her. Kanon had been leaning against the wall in the hallway near the kitchen entrance, a blind spot from the inside, and had been listening to all of this. He probably knew that if he entered the kitchen, sparks would start to fly his way.
言わせておきなよ。最低の男だ。
でも、接待の基礎の勉強になるし、合田さんはたくさん勉強してるから、とても参考に。
姉さんは優しいね。
それより、貴賓室のお客様が、ベアトリーチェ様だというのは本当なの？
うん。昼食の配膳に行かされた時にあった。間違いなくあいつだったよ。
そう。お元気そうだった？
Kanon remembered that he and Shannon had different impressions of Beatrice. To Shannon, Beatrice was a cupid of love who had granted her magic to establish a relationship with George. Judging by the expression that rose to her face, it looked like she couldn't wait to inform Beatrice of how her relationship with George had progressed. However, Kanon already knew. That witch came here with a terrifying goal in mind. The nebulous witch that only they'd been able to see in the past had now revived so fully that she could walk in openly through the front door, and even have dinner carried to her. Once when she'd vanished from in front of Kanon, the witch said something about how her own powers was still weak. So, if that witch was now appearing so openly, did it mean she'd finally regained her former power? And she said something else too. She definitely said she'd sown seeds of love while fully aware that they would fail. And she said even more. She definitely said that the day had finally come, upon which the door to the Golden Land would be opened.
シャノン、あいつは親方様と何かの怪しげな儀式をし、きっと想像もできない恐ろしいことをする。
Again, they keep translating gishki as ceremony, but they're saying ritual.
それには誰も抗えない。
何の話なの？
Like they're synonyms, but gishki is like ritual would be more accurate. But I guess like in the West, you would say ceremony, right? Like if like if you were to refer to a Black Sabbath, you would not call it necessarily a ritual, you would probably call it a ceremony, for example. But that's more of a ritual, if that makes sense. Anyway, I won't harp on this too long, but I think I've mentioned this every single time the word gishki has come up. But just as a reminder, it just means a ritual.
あいつはやってきたんだ。親方様が求めた黄金鏡の扉を開き、すべてを黄金鏡に戻すために。あいつは僕に確かにそう言った。
In the past, the two of them, as furniture working for Kinzo, had been told what opening of the door to the Golden Land meant. So Shannon understood everything without having to ask a single question. So they know it means death. And because of that, she felt a deep despair. Something tore at Kanon's heart as he looked at that expression twisted with grief.
そんな、どうして今になって。
だから言ったんだ。僕らは人間の真似事なんかして恋なんかするから、僕たちの役目の終わるこの日を素直に受け入れられない。い
つかこの日が訪れることを。でもいつまで経っても訪れなくて、私たちはいつまで家具として苦しめばいいのかわからない。だから私思った。安息の日なんて永遠に訪れないんだって。
Did I accidentally skip that? My bad.
僕だってそう思ってた。でも
God damn it.
必ずいつか訪れるって僕は信じてた。だから僕は家具としての自覚を忘れなかったんだ。なのに姉さんは忘れた。
私が悪いのね。私が。
ああ、姉さんが悪い。姉さんさえ恋を覚えなかったら、僕たちはようやく訪れた今日を喜び合うはずだった。姉さんがくだらない未練を作ってしまったんだ。必ず去らなければならない世界なのに。
儀式は今夜始まるの？
あと、あいつは僕に言った。今夜ジョージ様は姉さんに婚約指輪を贈るだろうって。
That was a fact. George supposedly had an engagement ring hidden in his pocket today. And surely, he would hand it over tonight.
あいつは姉さんとジョージ様を第二の番の生贄に使うつもりで二人の仲をくっつけたんだ。わかる？姉さんはあいつにそそのかされた上、利用されたんだよ。
So if we go back a tiny bit, specifically here, where he's like, it's your fault. If only you hadn't experienced love, we'd both be happy that this day had finally come. So, it's just crazy how they were both so depressed doing this kind of work that they longed for death, which was, again, the Golden Land. But now, now that Shannon is happy, she doesn't want that. Even though you knew you'd have to leave this world someday. It's like, it's a very crazy thing for them to have, like, agreed to this, if that makes sense. So maybe that is part of the agreement if you're going to live here on this island, on this mansion, that if you are going to, you need to agree to, hey, by the way, you might just so happen to be working the same night I perform a ritual that kills everyone. So if you agree to that, you get paid well.
そうだったの。考えたこともなかったわ。
でもあいつは言ったよ。もし今夜その婚約指輪を受け取らなかったなら、姉さんを生贄に選ばないと約束した。僕たちが揃って黄金鏡へ行ける確率はとても低いと思う。13人が生贄になる。生き残るのは5人だけ。その中に僕たち2人が入れる確率は本当に低い。でも姉さんだけでもその約束が得られるなら確率はもっと上がる。僕はかけたいんだ。黄金鏡には救いがある。僕たちはそこへたどり着き人間を手に入れるんだ。そして姉さんと2人で人間としての人生を歩みたいんだよ。そうすれば本当の恋だってできるかもしれない。
かつての私たちは黄金鏡へ行けることを夢見てたね。そこへ行けばどんな願いでも叶う。私たちをこの苦しみから救ってくれる。そう信じてた。
However, in this ceremony, only a few people would be invited to the Golden Land, chosen by fate and chance. Everyone else would lose their life as a sacrifice midway through the ceremony. However, in the past, Shannon and Kanon had thought that whether they reached the Golden Land or were sacrificed, they would still be released from their duties as furniture. That meant this ceremony would definitely bring release to furniture like them, no matter what happened.
僕は嫌だ。これまでの辛かった分を姉さんと取り戻したい。生贄なんてごめんだ。僕と姉さんは生き残る。そして2人で黄金鏡へたどり着く。だから姉さんを第二の晩の生贄になんかさせない。頼むよ姉さん。あの男の指輪を受け取らないで。それを受け取らなければあいつは姉さんを生贄には選ばないと約束してくれた。
それはできないよ。今夜の指輪はとても特別なもの。それを受け取らないことは私の心。
姉さん、儀式の生贄は魔女が気まぐれに決めることになってる。その魔女が姉さんだけは見逃すと約束してくれたんだよ。姉さんだけは絶対に黄金鏡へ行けるんだ。
私だけ？カノン君は？
僕は魔女のゲームで十分さ。あいつの魔女なんかかいくぐってやる。僕は無力じゃない。わずかの確率を無理やり掴み取ってやる。
And that's also a new sprite for Kanon.
僕たちのせいなんて。本当の人生を始めるために僕たちは黄金鏡へたどり着こう。そして人間を手に入れよう。そうしたらさ、僕も姉さんみたいに恋が知れるかな。もう家具だからって人を泣かせずに済むかな。
カノン君。
僕はもう家具は嫌だ。絶対に人間になってやる。こんな苦しみから絶対に。
There were tears in Kanon's eyes. By now, Kanon had noticed Shannon hadn't been the only one to know and suffer from the taste of love. He had too. The tears Jessica had shown him that day, and Jessica's pitiful face as she tried to smooth things over and stay bright ever since then, had slowly wrought some kind of change on Kanon's heart without him knowing it.
Shannon.
And before we continue, so we know that at least it's been established that of the servants that exist or that are employed at this manor, those with the golden crest or with the eagle crest are above the others in the hierarchy. They are most trusted by Kinzo and so on and so forth. And we now just learned that those who have this crest, presumably all, know of the epitaph, the ritual, and what it means to go to the Golden Land. Which kind of puts chapter 1 in a different perspective. Because the entire time, Shannon, Kanon, and Genji all knew what the fuck was going on. And instead of telling anyone what was happening, they just went along with the ritual. We know Genji wasn't going to squeal, because he's the most loyal to Kinzo. Shannon couldn't, because she got killed. And Kanon, the way it was, or the way it played out, it was kind of implied that he didn't know what was going on for some reason. But now that we know this, it's a little bit more fucked up. You know? Well, everyone was panicking. Well, everyone was asking what the fuck is the Golden Land. All three of them knew. Or by the end of chapter 1, both of them knew. Kanon could have said anything, but he didn't. He could have, like, when they were all gathered in the, after, like, it was confirmed that Kinzo was gone, he could have told everyone, hey, by the way, we're currently playing a death game set up by the witch. This is what's going to happen. Even if they don't know the specifics of, like, where the gold is or whatever, he could have just been like, let's go to the epitaph, this is what's going to happen. Look, this has currently happened already. But instead of doing that, they just kind of went with the story, which is pretty fucked up of them. Either Kanon got caught up in the moment, which can happen, or he didn't mention any of this for some reason. Either he was banking on maybe making it to the Golden Land, or not, or I don't know if he gave up by the end because he tries to kill Beatrice. He uses the axe or whatever to try to swing at her. It fails, and he dies. He gets a railway spike to the chest. Was it the head? No, chest. So he gets a fucking ice pick to the chest and dies. After he gets quote unquote like medical attention, and then he dies in like the final room or whatever. You get what I mean? He dies later without saying anything. So like I'm trying to think what the fuck was going on through his head to not mention any of this shit. Anyway.
さっきから呼んでいる。
Shannon jumped at the sudden sound of Genji's voice. Apparently he had called for her repeatedly. She hurriedly answered. When she turned back, Kanon had disappeared. It seemed he didn't feel like showing his tears to anybody.
はい。ぼんやりしていてすみません。
昼食はカノンに頼んだが、本来は私の次の序列のお前が運ぶべきものだ。ベアトリーチェ様は当家の最高の賓客だ。それ以上の賓客はいない。もう一人の親方様と思い、丁重に頼む。
よろしいですか。くれぐれも粗相のないようにお願いしますよ。 経験の未熟なあなたに託すのは非常に心苦しいですが、当家のルールとあっては仕方ありません。くれぐれも頼みますよ。
Golda had officially agreed, but he glared at Shannon with an expression that told her he definitely wouldn't forgive any mistakes. Even Shannon felt that Golda might as well go himself if he was so desperate to go. But she considered this one of her responsibilities as one who had been allowed to wear the golden eagle, and had to give it up. And anyway, I wanted to meet Beatrice. What will I talk about? What will I ask? I don't know. Will this be a meeting of gratitude? Or one of grief? Or else... what? I don't know. Hold on, does that say like... It probably says something like Soretomo. Let's see. Let me double check. That's probably not Soretomo, because they're using kanji for it. But it's just like, thank you? Like, what should I say? Thanks? Let's here. Let's in the other one. Or mourn. So this specific this page here says, what should I talk about? What should I ask? I don't know. Gratitude or lamentation? Or here it is. This last one. I forgot. Or what? Let me double check this part here. Yes, it says Soretomo. Soretomo. Eh? Nani? Wait. So switch to English. Shannon piled the witch's food onto the serving cart and left the kitchen at a slow pace. How does she like take that upstairs? Do they have like a little elevator for the carts, or imagine her just like lifting the back the back wheels of the cart, and she starts climbing the stairs as the fucking trays are like clanging against each other. And she just goes like step by step, and you just hear like smacking, like the sound of steel against wood, over and over and over, and she has to do that like 70 times because of how many steps there are. The person knocking was Kaos.
お父さん、今日は年に一度の親族会議です。お父さんを一目見ようと兄弟が揃ったのではありませんか。
黙れ。出ぬと言っている。源氏、そこにいるのであろう。なぜ私の指示した通りに食事をここへ運ばせんのか。
Inzo screamed across the door. Genji was waiting behind Kaos.
お食事は書斎へ運べるよう準備しております。ただ、クラウス様が今夜はどうか下へ降りていただきたいと。
お父さん、毎日とは言いません。せめて今夜だけでも家族で揃ってはくれませんか。
誰が家族か。貴様はいつから生き倒れを待つハゲタカたちを家族と呼ぶようになったのか。腐りて湧き出すウジ虫を家族と呼ぶようになったのか。
My God. He fucking hates them. But he's right.
やれやれ。
Klaus shrugged at his answer, which he had half expected.
源氏、言われた通りに食事をここへ運べ。なぜ言うことを聞かぬ。なぜ
源氏さん、後を頼みます。もうあの人に私の声は届かんね。
Klaus gave his head a small shake, then quickly turned his back on the door to the study. He had only come calling to save face in front of his siblings, knowing full well how useless this was. After Genji watched Klaus disappear down the stairs, he called again across the door.
親方様、お食事を運ぶ準備はできております。南條先生の分はいかがいたしますか。
Nanjo could be seen in the study. Because Kinzo had forcefully pestered him into finishing their long-lasting chess game, they had been playing against each other since the early evening. Nanjo had announced as a doctor that Kinzo's days were numbered, so he couldn't refuse if Kinzo demanded that they finish this game while he still lived. Kinzo was thinking deeply about his move, concentrating more than usual. It had been Kinzo's turn for quite some time, and Nanjo, who was tired of waiting, had randomly pulled out a book on magic that he couldn't understand and was skimming it. Oh my god.
金蔵さん、盤面を前に腕を組むだけではいい一手は出ませんぞ。一つ休憩をして頭をリフレッシュしてみるのもいいのではありませんかな。
Like, imagine you're playing chess with a friend. He's taking forever to fucking make his move. So you just cross your leg, you stretch your hand out to, like, the bookshelf next to you, you grab whatever book you can get your hands on, you pull it out, and then you just start, like, skimming through the Necronomicon, just like, hey man, you should make your fucking move already. The fuck is he doing?
守りはこれで十分か。ビショップやナイトに隙間を突かれはしないか。
Today, Kinzo was focused on maintaining a strong defense. Normally, Kinzo's motto was that offense was the best defense. However, today was completely the opposite.
私も腹が減りました。ここいらで中断しませんか。それに休みなく頭を回転させておりましたから、もう頭がクラクラです。これ以上は私も最善手をさせるとは限り。それは困る。チェスは互いに常に最善手をささねばならん。そうでない一手は理解に苦しみ、思考を読むゲームを狂わせてしまう。
Okay. Well, looks like OBS crashed for a moment, but we are currently back. I was hoping that wouldn't happen. I have been having internet issues all week as well, but things were like normal today, so I was hoping that we could stream without any issues. If it happens again, I will just have to stop, just to prevent it from being a pain in the ass. But anyway, I'll just reread this. Now that won't do. In chess, both players must always make their best moves. Any other sort of move is merely a nuisance to consider, ruining a game whose focus is predicting your opponent's thoughts. Now, let me quickly look at this chessboard. Now, it's been ages since I've actually played chess, and we don't know who's playing who. We don't know who's white, we don't know who's black. But if we look at the board state itself, white castled, they lost their rook already. They've got two bishops, a queen, and a few pawns. Meanwhile, black has has a queen, a knight, and a bishop. Normally, as far as we've seen, like, backgrounds don't matter too much, in the sense that a background, like if you see a puzzle, or not a puzzle, but if you see like a sign or something in the background, it doesn't necessarily pertain to anything in the story. For the most part, you know, if you see a shrine, you're just gonna see a shrine. It's not like eventually you're gonna see, I don't know, a sigil appear on the shrine, for example. But if we quickly analyze this game, for the most part, it's kind of at a stalemate. At least for white. Like, God, I don't remember the letters off the top of my head, but there is a pawn that's currently in between two black pieces. That's currently the only pawn that can move, and if it moves, it gets taken by the queen. And then if it gets taken by the queen, like, the queen is applying pressure to the bishop that's right in front of it. which can then be taken by queen, but that doesn't do anything. Black can't move the pawn that's in front of the other, or their black pawn in front of the one that's, sorry. They can't move their black pawn in front of the two white pawns, because it can't move. If it could, technically, then yeah, it could put pressure on the king, putting it in check. Then the bishop can take, and then, you know, queen can take, but then king takes, or queen takes, and then the queen puts black in check. So, like... yeah, like, not much going on here. This seems like just like a game that's basically set up to be more, like a bit of a stalemate, for the most part. Because if you look at white's defenses, like, knight can take the pawn in front of the king and do nothing. Like, if it does that, nothing happens. Like, literally nothing fucking happens. Also, I think... No, never mind. I wasn't looking correctly. I thought there was a pawn in front of the last pawn, next to the king. But no, that's the, that's just like the rim of the king's hat, or crown. Yeah, this game is basically a stalemate. Unless they want to do some hardcore trading, which is not going to be good for any of them. Like... I mean, maybe white can win. It's gonna be a hassle. Like, if it's white's turn, what would they do? They could move their bishop to pressure the knight. And then if they do, like, the knight can either move or not. It's protected by a pawn. The pawn in front of the bishops is also, like, being attacked by the queen, but it's being defended by the white queen. Yeah, like, this fucking match sucks. I would hate to play this game. There's, like, nothing fun you can do here, for the most part. Like, it's like, the most pain-in-the-ass game to get out of. Like, realistically. Like, yeah, it just fucking sucks. Like, any possible outing for either side is annoying. Like, it just fucking sucks to deal with. So, god damn, I'm so glad I'm not playing this fucking chess match. I'm so glad they're not making us play this chess match. Because fuck that. Like, the only viable move for black is probably to move the pawn in front of the queen. And, like, that's it. That's the least offensive move, if not the other one. That's right next to the one that's right next to the queen can move up one, and then just shimmy them forward that way. I don't fucking know. Anyway, but yeah, like, this is, I guess technically this is environmental storytelling by showing us that they've kind of, like, they've been at this for a while, because this chessboard state is a nightmare. It's a nightmare, and, like, I don't want to deal with this shit. I don't even want to look at it anymore. But, like, trying to solve this shit is very annoying. It's very fucking annoying. But anyway, yeah, it's kind of just goes to show that both are, I guess, skilled players. Whomever is playing whom, it doesn't really matter. Both are basically tied for the most part. Like, this is a very defensive match that they're playing. Ugh, what a pain. Anyway. Kinzo sighed deeply and finally shifted his gaze away from the board. Chess isn't chess without an opponent. If that opponent is tired and wants to suspend the game, there's no getting around it.
確かにチェスの目的は勝利を目指すことで、互いにそのために最善手を指す。そしてそれを読み合う知的ゲームです。ですが、勝利以外にもう一つ目的があることを金蔵さんはお忘れではありませんかな？なんだと？勝利以外にどんな目的があるというのか。
There's another goal besides victory. To have fun? If you want to be, like, super cheesy about it. Unless it's, to make your opponent quit Which, if so, that'd be really funny. If that's the solution, quote unquote. Give me 1 second. Almost forgot about this. Anyway.
金蔵さんがそんなこともお忘れとは。チェスを通し親友ですぞ。
Of course. Chess is a way to pass the time, having fun with a friend.
参ったな。
He's like, fuck. He busted out the friendship card.
それは確かずいぶん昔に私がお前に言った言葉だったはず。これは参った。
Kinzo, who almost always wore a frown, relaxed his face for once and laughed. Nanjo felt like he'd been reunited with a close friend he hadn't seen in ages.
そういうことです。一本取られたついでにどうです。私と下に降りて食事と行きませんかな。食後にコーヒーと一緒にカスパロフの中盤についての議論でもいかがです。良い提案だが遠慮する。私はもうこの部屋から出られない。儀式は始まっているのでな。そうですか。では私はお腹もペコペコですからな。下へ降りることにします。気が向いたらいつでも。南條、ありがとう。おや、何の礼ですかな。お前とのチェスの決着はつかなかった。だが、私が忘れていたチェスの目的はどうやら果たせたらしい。それはどうもチェックメイトと同じくらい重要なものであったらしい。らしくもない。何の干渉ですかな。お前が言ったのではないか。私には余命がないと。もう行け。そしてもうこの部屋へ来るな。続きは黄金鏡であろう。いいですが、仕切り直しですぞ。ルークが落ちてしまったのは痛手ですのでな。それでは後ほど。ああ、後ほどな。
Okay. So OBS crashed again, which means I will have to call it here in a second. We'll finish this scene and then we'll probably end it early for today, unfortunately.
黄金鏡か煉獄か、あるいは次の世で。
Nanjo didn't say anything beyond that. And with a motion made smoothly by familiarity, he pushed the button on the table that would release the auto lock. Then, after looking at Kinzo's back one last time, he left the study. As he did, Genji's voice came from the hall. Oh.
それでは親方様、これより夕食をお運びいたします。
最後の晩餐になるやもしれぬ。味わわねばな。準備を頼む。
かしこまりました。親方様のご準備の方は万端となりましたか。
この部屋を今日まで問え旗への結界で厳重に包んだ。あれのルーレットが私を選ぼうとも必ずや弾き返す。 そして生き残り黄金鏡へたどり着くうちの一人は絶対に私となる。私を冥府へ連れ去ろうとする死神どもの来訪をも拒もうぞ。
Okay. So this is really important. The room has been wrapped in a multitude of barriers. Right. So even if the roulette chooses him, he will repel it. We know that at least in the first chapter, he dies. Kinzo ends up boiled alive in the boiler room. In the literal, like, boiler. Huh. The other thing here is that he mentions the Reapers trying to drag him off. Now, this is I mean, it depends. Like, he said Shinigami, which just means, you know, god of death. But here they translated it as the Reapers. So either this means that there are entities outside of, you know, those that are in the manor right now, the 19 individuals. There's others. It could be 2 other people, 3 other people, 4, 5, whatever. 1 for each person, right? It could either mean that there's multiple forces that will enforce the rules of the game, of the death roulette, or this is metaphorical. And he means just like, you know, ghosts or whatever coming to drag him to the underworld or whatever. I don't remember if Japan has multiple gods of death specifically. For example, in Western religions, there is usually just the quote-unquote Grim Reaper, right? And it's just one dude. It is a Reaper. It is one guy. It is a skeleton with a scythe, and, you know, he's got a scroll, and that's it. He will come and pick the dead. That's what the Grim Reaper will do. So, oh, wait a sec. There we go. Okay. Oh, jeez. Like, OBS is just gonna be giving us so many issues tonight. Anyway, so this could either mean, again, it's multiple gods of death, or it's just one guy. And this is just metaphorical, where, again, in the West, there's only one type of death god for the most part. Usually in Western religion, if someone dies, they either go up or down in life, right? Depending on the afterlife that they will visit. And that's about it. Although if OBS keeps crashing like this, we can't continue. Anyway, so yeah, I'm trying to, like, look into this. I'm not sure if, again, he did say Shinigami, but Japan doesn't really have, as far as I'm aware, they don't really have plural, like, forms of words for the most part. For example, in English, you have one man, that is a singular man, and multiple men, or many men, right? That's more than one man. So, man, singular, men, plural. I don't know if they have a specific version for this, because it's all contextual, and it all depends on, like, the sentence itself. For example, in Japan, you wouldn't say, like, all right, boys and girls, let's go out. Let's go outside, right? If you're referring to, let's say, a group of kids, right? A teacher would not say, all right, boys and girls, let's go. In the West, they would. In the West, normally, that'd be a sentence that you would hear in the classroom, like, all right, you know, it's recess time, right? But in Japan, they would just say, like, mina, which means everyone. It's not like, they wouldn't specify, they wouldn't say the word for boys and girls in Japanese, and then let's go. They would just say, like, mina iko, and that's it. Like, everyone, let's go. So, the same thing applies to singular nouns, or just nouns in general. For example, Shinigami can be one, but it can also be multiple. But it depends on the context of the sentence as well. So it can be a little confusing. Because you could say like the land of the Shinigami can mean the land of the gods of the dead, or something like the realm of the god of the dead, singular. Anyway, I'm probably overthinking this. I've been talking about it for like 3 minutes, so I'm gonna move on. Shannon entered the VIP room, bowing her head and pushing the serving cart. The young woman by the window, gazing out into the supposedly empty darkness, was definitely that witch.
今度はシャノンか。懐かしいな。ほう、顔色がだいぶ良くなったではないか。カノンとは違うな。見違えたぞ。
We're getting Halloween music again. This is also a new background, I'm pretty sure. I don't remember seeing it before. Shannon solemnly prepared dinner. Sorry. Shannon solemnly prepared dinner. There were actually several things she wanted to ask the witch, but they were all jumbled up and she didn't know where to start. Her heart was also jumbled up, and she didn't even understand her own emotions. So she could only do her job dispassionately, with everything still vague. However, the witch saw what was in her heart. You can't hide anything from a witch.
謝らぬぞ。わらわは魔女だからな。
何がでしょう。
ほうや、カノンから聞かされたであろう。そなたの恋路を助けたのはわらわの単なるいたずら心。いかにしてこじれ、ねじれ、破綻するかを干渉するためにまいた種に過ぎぬと。
恋はするより聞く方が楽しい方もおられるでしょう。
まさかわらわに感謝しようというのではあるまいな。
はい、あなたが私にどんな下心があなたが私に与えてくれたものは変わらない。だから添い遂げられないと知りつつまいた種であったとしても、私は恨んだりしません。
ふん、やはり家具というのは面白みのない。それを面白く調理するのがわらわの腕の見せ所よの。
私にベアトリーチェ様のお考えは分かりません。あなたは私たちなど足元にも及ばない大魔女で、その遠大な資料など想像するにも至りません。でも一つだけ言えることがある。
なんだ。
私に人間を教えてくれてありがとう。あなたが言った。私はもう家具じゃない。
黙れ家具。真の人間ならば婚約指輪を受け取ろうという日に告げられた死の宣告に嘆き狂いて踊り出すだろう。なのにそなたはなんだ。達観し全てを受け入れたような顔つきではないか。実に拍子抜けだぞ家具。
She's trying to save face now. Look at how upset she looks. She genuinely looks so fucking pissed off that Shannon isn't like, you know, backing out. Or backing down, I mean. instead of being upset that she's going to die tonight, she's like, hey, by the way, thanks for everything.
いいえ、私は家具じゃない。
黙れ家具。
黙りません。家具ではありませんから。
わらわの命令が聞けぬというか。
家具なら命令に従います。でも人間は命令に従うかどうかを自分で決めます。だから私はあなたの命令に従わない。
宣言を撤回する。やはり面白いぞ。種をまかねばそなたは何の感情も抱かず儀式に身を任せただろう。しかし今のそなたは実に面白く育ち、わらわを心底楽しませてくれるぞ。それでいい。わらわは退屈を愛さないのだから。
Now, I've said this numerous times, but once again, they say ceremony or they translate gishiki as ceremony. Just take it as ritual instead of ceremony. And also, hey Farron, thanks so much for stopping by over on the Twitch side. Enjoy your lurk.
お夕食の準備が整いました。どうぞ。
うん。なかなかうまそうではないか。
Can she even eat?
ゴーダが黄金鏡へたどり着くことがあれば、わらわの料理長に任命してやってもよかろう。
カノン君に聞きました。私にジョージさんの婚約を断らせれば私を生贄にしないなんて約束をしたとか。
うん。したぞ。そなたは第二の番にうってつけの生贄候補だったのだがな。カノンがそれを許せと泣いて叫ぶので寛大に聞き入れてやったのよ。そなたが婚約を破棄すればとの条件付きでな。わらわのなんと寛大なことよ。
So here she can tell, or I'm pretty sure she's able to tell that Beatrice is lying. Because Kanon would not be, or did she say it? Cried and screamed. He would not cry and scream begging for Shannon. He might demand it, but not beg or something. But anyway.
なんてバカな条件。そしてなんてバカな脅迫。そんなものでカノン君をいじめ抜いたというの。
ほう、わかるのか。
Apparently, Shannon had seen through it. She had apparently guessed at how the witch had bullied and humiliated Kanon, with that horrible promise as bait.
絨毯に這いつくばらせ、わらわの靴にキスをさせてやったぞ。それだけではない。他にどのような恥ずかしめを与えたか、聞きたいか。
Shannon silently shook her head.
あなたという人を私はようやく理解しました。あなたは人をいじめ、惑わせ、困らせて、それを楽しみ、糧にしている。だから、あなたに抵抗する唯一の方法が、これであると確信した。
なんだ。
あなたなんか知らない。私は、私に与えられた運命を全うする。だから、あなたを面白がらせたりしない。
あなたなんか知らない。
What a sprite. For Beatrice of all people. God, she looks so funny. The witch's features twisted in hatred for just an instant. It disappeared immediately, but the expression that briefly rose to her face was rare for the witch, whose malicious smile usually never faded for a second.
そういう抗い方もあるか。面白い。気に入った。殺してやる。お前の思い人と一緒にな。
それがあなたの決められた運命ならばご随意に。私はそれに怯えたり逆らったりしません。これから起こる苛烈な運命があなたの意志によるものだなんて信じないから。私たち人間は未来に起こりうる運命など知らない。だからこそ最後の瞬間まで自分の信念と運命に従い精一杯生き抜く。運命はただのサイコロの目、そこに悪意なんて感じない。あなたが吹き込もうと信じない。
Right. So fate is just a roll of the dice. And as we know, Beatrice doesn't even roll her dice. She's so confident that she will win that she never plays her hand. And that's her whole power. As I'm trying to remember, because again, it's been, if you're watching this on YouTube later, it's been however long, like 20 minutes. But for me, it's been like 2 weeks. So this is interesting. Because as we know, once you're able to figure out the rules of the world, Beatrice's power means nothing. So, what I guessed a long time ago was that Beatrice was kind of like an intention or any sort of entity that relies on belief. So, for example, if you believe a lot in Beatrice, if you believe that she exists, that she is real, then she will exist. But if you just don't believe in her, if you don't believe that she exists, then she loses influence, she loses power. So I'm assuming that something similar is going on here. And here Shannon is basically rejecting her. She's like, whatever happens, happens, but I just stopped caring about you.
ほう、家具をやめたくせに死を恐れぬとはな。それがわらわを退屈させると思っているようだが、それは大きな誤解だぞ。そなたが本当に最後の瞬間までそれを貫けるか、ますます興味が湧いた。
私は悔しい。どうしてあなたは人の姿をして私たちの前に現れ、人の言葉で語り私たちを嘲笑うのか。
Looks like, again, we're just having OBS interruptions. This sucks. Let me try one other quick thing. Real quick. From my end. Let's try it like so. Maybe that'll help. Hopefully. Anyway.
私たちの前に現れず運命を予告しなかったなら、私たちは最後の一瞬まで精一杯生きられるのに。
それが魔女というものよ。貴様らの運命を食い物に、工事の存在として定時の存在の上に君臨する。そなたらの運命など、所詮はかけら。両手で碗を作ればいくらでも救える。
And that's also a very important line. Your fates are nothing more than fragments. If I cup my hands together, I could scoop out as many of those as I want. So this is what Rika was doing. I don't remember who it was from the Witch's Tea Party. Because again, that's for me, it's been like a month already since we finished chapter 1. But she was able to defeat a witch. She was able to defeat someone else. So it seems like someone else was also interfering with Rika's fate when we were covering Higurashi a while back. So, just like how she was able to go from fragment to try to find the perfect one, and it took her forever to find the fragment where everything worked out perfectly, Beatrice can do that whenever the fuck she wants. So here, again, if you've been reading the series chronologically, I guess, you know, going from Higurashi to Umineko, here Beatrice is just telling us that she can do whatever the fuck she wants, whenever she wants. You as the reader have no control over this, and you're going to lose. But of course, we have to believe in Battler, and believe that Beatrice isn't even real.
わらわに飼われた肉牛どもが何をほざこうとも、わらわの食卓を楽しませる結果に変わりはせぬのに同じこと。
What a fucking line.
無力な私たちには、しかしあなたに今すぐ不愉快な思いをさせることはできる。
ほう、それは何か。
今すぐここを立ち去ることです。あなたの言葉に応えることは、すべてあなたを楽しませている。あなたの問いかけに答えないことが、あなたへ唯一できる抵抗です。
なるほどなるほど。一矢報いることはできよう。しかし、わらわを倒すことはできぬぞ。わらわは誰しもを永遠に殺す力を持っている。永遠に繰り返し殺される輪廻の中で、そなたがいつまでその抵抗をできるのか。忘れるなよ。自らが口にした言葉。
それでは失礼いたします。ご用がありましたらお呼びください。
Shannon gave a reserved bow and faced away. With that gesture, maybe she really did take a shot back at the witch, just as Beatrice had said. Because when the witch called out again, she sounded a little more quick-tempered than she had before.
カノンはわらわに感謝したぞ。そなたは安息の日をわらわが与えることを。
家具なら安息の日を喜びましょう。ですが、私は人間ですので。だから、あなたに感謝することはありません。ご用はそれだけですか？
ジョージから指輪をもらうつもりであろう。受け取れば、わらわがカノンと交わした、そなたを生贄に選ばないという約束を破棄すること。忘れるな。
まだご用があるなら、他のものを来させますので。それでは、失礼いたします。
She just doesn't give a fuck. Oh my god. A flat-out interruption. Shannon still hadn't answered her, and the sound of the door closing came instead of an answer. Shannon's resistance probably struck far more deeply into the witch than Shannon herself thought. Because an expression of hatred, once again, rose to Beatrice's face. And here she is pissed the fuck off. So, we already have Battler, who is defying Beatrice. He doesn't even believe she exists. Like, that's already, that's like below anything possible for someone. Denying them their existence, it like will hurt them way more than anything else. Now imagine being in a place where you are like the most important person, literally, on this island. She is the VIP. She is more important than Kinzo. And already two people have decided that she doesn't fucking matter. That is fucking cruel, I guess, to someone like Beatrice. Oh. And OBS crashed again for a second. And it just so happens that the moment it fucking crashed, everyone on Twitch is going to ads, which really sucks. So again, sorry about that, but I can't do like fucking anything about this. Either way. There's Beatrice pissed the fuck off about everything. She had made Kanon submit, even though he hadn't been ensnared until the end. Whereas Shannon, who had been so easily ensnared before, refused to submit this time.
なんだ。やはりこれは面白いことではないか。わらわもまだまだ若いか。これだから1000年は生き飽きぬのよ。
And also we have a new background, I'm pretty sure. It's supposed to be dark out, but you can kind of see some of the sun's rays coming through like the window, the window pane, a little bit through the curtains. But, you know, Ryukishi tried his best. And I don't blame him. A flashbang of all things. Anyway, this was the most fabulous part of the family conference, dinner. In the past, when Kinzo had been serious about the conference, he'd taken everyone's yearly gathering for dinner very seriously. Because anything embarrassing that occurred during the dinner would cause the deepest shame for him as the host. He had given Natsuhi stern orders to avoid embarrassment at all costs. Because of that, she and Klaus eventually hired Golda, who had confidence in his cooking abilities. Thanks to that, they became able to serve wonderful dinners they could be confident in. But by that time, Kinzo had closed himself up in his study and never appeared for dinner. Maybe you could call that ironic. When the main dish for tonight, calf steak, was set out, Golda began to describe it proudly, further stimulating everyone's appetites.
こちらソースはボルドレーズとなっております。ベースの赤ワインはもちろんボルドー産の中でも素晴らしいものを使用しておりますが、その他にも当家オリジナルブレンドとしまして世界各地数種類の名酒をブレンドしまして、より深い味わいとなりますよう整えてございます。このソースは本年限りのものでございます。どうかお楽しみいただければ幸いです。
素晴らしいじゃないか。しかしボルドレーズソースはフランス料理の王道ではないのかね。それにフランス以外の酒を使うのは少し邪道ではないかという気もするね。
旦那様、本日は年に一度の親族会議でございます。普段は遠方にお住まいの皆様がはるばるお越しになり、一堂に集われた夜の晩餐には世界各地より普段は出会うことのない名酒を取り寄せブレンドしたソースが何よりもふさわしいかと存じ、
Interesting.
特別にご用意させていただいたのでございます。
素晴らしい。本当に素晴らしい料理人や。あんたは能書きが加わると料理も薬も効果は2倍になるっちゅうわけやな。元の料理のうまさも2倍、さらに能書きで2倍。味の倍々ゲームや。
Now, I know Uncle Hideyoshi is from the Kansai region and everything, but he did refer to him with Anta, which is again a very rude way to refer to someone else. It's very ill-mannered to do that. You say that to someone you don't care about that much. Or I mean, rarely if you're playing around, I guess, with a friend, right? If you're kidding around, you'll refer to them that with Anta. But so it's kind of weird hearing it from him. I mean, I know he's a servant and all, but like, you know, come on. It doesn't fit Hideyoshi. It fits Ava a lot more.
いやね、兄さん。その質問、読まれてたんじゃないの？
違いねえな。まんまと美味しいところをゴーダさんに持ってかれちまったぜ。
そうかね。今日の料理をフランス風だと気づいていない者もいるんじゃないかと思ってね。エヴァは先ほどバターを使わないのが美徳と言ったが、それはスペイン風だ。確かに国境を接してはいるがね。
そういう意味で言ったんじゃないわよ。話の一部分だけ抜き出して勝手に加工しないでくれるかしら。
ゴーダさんは本当に素晴らしいわ。
Yeah, thanks. I mean, I am using the OG sprites, same with the OG backgrounds. I've mentioned this before at the very start of the playthrough, but the backgrounds were modded in. A friend of the channel who joins me on the post-chapter discussions whenever we do those at the end of a chapter was like, hey, I'll replace all the backgrounds for you so you can have a better streaming experience, and it's been great. That's why we have, as far as I know, if you use the 07th mod, it keeps the original backgrounds but only replaces the character sprites with the classics, which is a little weird. But anyway, glad you're having fun.
お褒めに預かり、大変光栄です。これもすべて奥様の日頃のご指導のおかげでございます。
いえ、すべてゴーダのアイディアです。私はレシピを聞き、承認しただけです。
It looked like the siblings quickly got into a loud argument about the sauce. Of all things. But for the most part, dinner proceeded peacefully. However, a certain question they desperately wanted to ask burned inside each one of them. Where the fuck is Kinzo? Oh, it was about that visitor, the 19th person. The Golden Witch. In actuality, Ava and Rudolph and the rest were very much on their guards during this meal. If the mystery guest was ever going to be introduced, this dinner table would be the most appropriate place to do it. And this is one of the few backgrounds that kind of slip past the mod, but it is a little jarring every now and again, seeing like this or that one bedroom scene, where it is like the modern bed and stuff like that instead of the classic ones. Either way. However, no place was set at the dinner table for the witch. The family conference would begin in earnest after the meal, and previous experiences told them that it might last until deep into the night. However, they couldn't imagine why such a person should be kept hidden until that late, if they were going to be introduced in the end anyway. What I'm a little curious about is where Beatrice would sit. I don't remember the specific order, but if you recall, you have at the end of at one end of the table you would have Kinzo, then you would have Klaus, then you would have Ava, I think it was, and then it goes down the line, so-and-so, based on rank and family, and then at the very end, it was Natsuhi, right? So where would Beatrice sit in this table? Would it be right next to Natsuhi? Would it be at the other end, like sitting straight across from Kinzo? Would it be right next to Kinzo? Maybe we'll find out later, but we're not sure in Chapter 2 yet. So, Ava and Rudolph and the rest were starting to feel a certain suspicion. Perhaps this guest was unknown even to Klaus. If this wasn't an assassin called by Klaus to give him an advantage in the inheritance problem, of all things, then maybe they should speak frankly to Klaus beforehand, creating a common front to resist anything disadvantageous to the four siblings. If she was Kinzo's assassin, whose purpose was to keep the inheritance from being handed over to the four siblings, the enmity between Klaus and the other siblings could only become a weak point that benefited the enemy.
それではごゆっくりお楽しみください。
When he finished explaining the reasoning behind the table setting and the cooking, Golda tried to leave the room, but Kirie called him to a stop with a small voice.
はい、キリエ様。何か。
ごめんなさい。今日はお客様がいらっしゃってると思ったんだけど、晩餐にはお見えにならないのかしら。
She had planned on saying it nonchalantly, but unfortunately it reached the ears of Natsuhi, who was sitting in the next seat over. It seemed that Sorry, every time the sprite comes up, whenever she doesn't have like her eyes open, well, let's see. Characters. Natsuhi. Whenever she doesn't have this face, like with these eyes, she always looks so confused. She's like, what the fuck's going on, bro? Huh? So anytime they're like she just looks so silly. It seemed that Natsuhi had heard it as, even though the guests are here, why hasn't the host come to dinner? In other words, that Kirie had asked whether Kinzo was going to join them for dinner.
当主様は体調が優れられませんので、お部屋で食事をとると仰せです。主人が初めにそう説明いたしましたが、何か。
ごめんなさい。そうじゃないの。
Natsuhi's reaction instantly told Kirie that this unknown visitor was also unknown to Klaus and his wife. Which meant, on the chessboard inside Kirie's mind, she could hear the clattering of pieces as they rearranged themselves.
客?
Battler, who had been sitting next to Natsuhi, seemed to have heard Kirie's words without misunderstanding them. Thinking it strange that someone else would be invited to today's family conference, he spoke up incredulously. And thanks to that, the uncomfortable feeling building in the siblings' chest suddenly exploded. Oh boy. Everyone looked at Golda at the same time. Judging by their reactions, it was clear that no one here had invited that mystery woman. For an instant, Golda was startled to find everyone's gazes gathered on him, but because of his naturally vain personality, this actually gave him a feeling of superiority. Therefore, he answered in an extremely calm and graceful manner.
はい。貴賓室でお一人で食事を取られたいとのことで、そちらへお運びしております。
That extremely graceful and reasonable response of Golda's made it obvious to everyone that a 19th person, a visitor, existed.
貴賓室？客？何の？誰の話ですか？
Natsuhi's words echoed the question that everyone who didn't know about the appearance of the Golden Witch was thinking. For a while, Golda was disoriented, caught completely off guard by this sudden interrogation. This was a guest who had been treated with such deep respect. He hadn't imagined that Klaus and his wife might not even know about her.
その、ベアトリーチェ様でございます。
ベアトリーチェ、ほらほら、ベアトリーチェ来てるでしょ。
Maria had been telling the other cousins over and over again that she had met Beatrice that day. The cousins had answered flippantly, but they hadn't believed. So, their eyes grew wide.
すまねえ。俺はてっきりマリアの冗談だと思ってたぜ。本当にいたんだな。
ベアトリーチェって、あの黄金のベアトリーチェなのかよ。
What a loud, oh, what a loud sound.
マリアはいるってずっと言ってる。誰も信じてない。
And again, she's not saying exists. she's saying she's been here the whole time.
ごめんね、マリアちゃん。そういうつもりじゃないんだよ。
After learning that everyone had doubted Beatrice's existence, Maria, who had been in a good mood all day, completely lost her temper. George, who sat in the next seat over, tried frantically to calm Maria.
ゴーダ、それもディナーの何かの余興なのかね。なかなかの味な演出だ。
Just turns to Goda, he's like, you're fucking with us, right?
兄貴、三文芝居はやめようぜ。兄貴が呼んだんだろ。
呼ぶ？誰よ？どこから？
兄さん、はっきりさせましょう。あれは誰？まさか、本当に肖像画のベアトリーチェだと言うんじゃないでしょうね。
私にはお前たちが何を言っているのかさっぱりだ。ゴーダ、これは本当に冗談ではないのだな。
私は源氏さんからそのように指示を受けただけでして、
Oh.
源氏を呼びなさい。
He's shifting the blame immediately.
今すぐ。
When Natsuhi yelled, Goda sped out into the hallway. The sound of the door being thrown open was the spark that suddenly set the dinner table ablaze.
じゃあ兄貴も知らないってんだな。呼んだのは誰だ？親父ってことか？
私には何のことかわからんね。お前たちは私が裏で糸を引いていると信じているようだが、それは大きな誤解だ。
クラス兄さん、落ち着いてえな。わしらはもう腹の探り合いをすべき段階にないで。もし兄さんも知らない怪人物だっちゅうんなら、これはとんでもない話になるんやで。
秀吉さん、言葉を少し慎みませんか？主人は親族会議に不要な人間を招いたりはしません。
まったくだ。お前たちは何を言っているのかね。肖像画の魔女が額縁を抜け出して現れたとでも言うのかね。
Yeah.
実際にその魔女様に会ったという人間がいるわけでもなかろうが。
私、あったわ。
I thought they were gonna just pan to her for a little bit, and she was just gonna be like ... Okay, OBS being lame again. There we go. The shitty part about this is that anyone that's following is probably getting a bunch of, hey, I've gone live notifications. And if they are, god damn, that fucking sucks. But I really want to keep going. We're pretty behind on Umineko. But anyway, yeah, she's like the only other person that has seen Beatrice besides Maria today. Ava and Rudolph nodded at Rosa's proclamation. Right, Maria too. Why not? The brief tension was broken and Maria also started to make a ruckus. By now, the room was thoroughly wrapped in chaos.
何が何だかさっぱりだぜ。つまりなんだ?
Also, before I forget, this is a new background that we haven't seen. So we'll leave it here for a tiny bit. But yeah, it's crazy. Now all of this is going to be brought to light. And the fucking table has been thrown, or dinner has been thrown into disarray. Because now everyone's like, what do you mean there's someone else? And as we know, that 19th guest so far is Beatrice wearing clothing that she should not be wearing for someone that's like 1,019 years old. But here she is.
じい様に黄金を授けた魔女様が今年の親族会議にはスペシャルゲストとして登場ってわけかよ。
しかし本当にローザおばさんの見間違いってことじゃねえの？マリア
ローザおばさん、間違いなくなんですか？
ええ、私とマリアは会って話もしてる。私は会ったの。あれは間違いなく魔女だった。信じて。私の見間違いとか錯覚とか、あれは何だったの？
In the instant before the typhoon arrived, Rosa definitely met a witch in the rose garden. But the scene had been so hard to accept as truth that the more she spoke of it like this, the less she understood what it was she had encountered. Ironically, since she was losing her composure, the more frantically she tried to cling to her claim, the more confused and hazy the thing she was describing became. Because of that, it only took a single, calmly spoken sentence to confirm the nature of what she was describing beyond doubt. The letter.
私も会ったわ。
Oh, that's right. She also met her. In the hallway.
挨拶とはとても言えないけれど、一応言葉も交わしてる。ローザさんの見間違いとかじゃ断じてないわ。
Right. I almost forgot Kiria met her. And when she was like, hey, I don't believe we've met. May I have your name? Beatrice, like, her neck snaps 180 degrees behind her head, behind her body. And she just looks at her and is like, you would dare ask my name knowing what it is? And she's standing, like, right in front of the portrait. Like, what the fuck is your problem?
キリエさん、それマジかよ。
ええ。でも彼女は私に名乗らなかった。だから彼女がベアトリーチェであると断定はできない。でも、主観的で恐縮なんだけど、私は玄関ホールで彼女に会ったから、肖像画と顔を見比べることができた。私は第一印象で、彼女こそがこの肖像画の主に違いないって思ったわ。あくまでも主観よ。
Now, I've mentioned this before, but... Oh. Okay. Anyway. I've mentioned this before, where the original painting that we saw in the hallway, or... Well, yeah, in the hallway, was a little different than the one that we're seeing right now. The one that we're seeing before us at this very moment is the one that matches Beatrice's attire in this chapter. Where, if we bring it up real quick, and there you can see Beatrice wearing this. Meanwhile, in the first chapter, Beatrice is wearing a long dress, and she looks a little bit different than she does, well, here, kind of. Mainly just her outfit. That's the main difference. But the painting is also painted in a different style, to the point where I thought that this might have been a digital painting. But no, this is a physical painting that was made or was commissioned by Ryukishi to be displayed, I don't fucking remember where, during Comic-Con. It was during Comic-Con. That was something that Billy told me. I think I mentioned it in the past streams as well. But basically, since this happens every year, Comic-Con is once a year. Or sorry, not once a year, once a season or something. There's Comic-Con spring, summer, fall, and winter, if I'm not mistaken. So that's when they try to release these games. So during the first Comic-Con, if I'm not mistaken, they had the two paintings. One of the classic Beatrice, the one where she's in her long dress and everything. She looks regal, and then she's kind of looking off into the distance. They had that on one side, and then they had this painting as well on the other side. So anyway, it is like she does look a tiny bit different here in this painting that she does in the original. But considering that they're both wearing the same outfit, it's not difficult to kind of tell who she's supposed to be, if that makes sense. Anyway.
そんなことはありえません。第一、その女はどこからやってきたというのですか？ 今日の船は皆さんの送迎のための便が往復しただけです。その船に乗っていたのですか？
それを言われると弱いな。確かにそんなご婦人と一緒に下船した記憶はない。
あら、そう？私たちの乗ってきた船以外に船はないってどうして証明できるの？できないわ。来なかったは証明できない。
道理だな。来たは証明できる。来たのを見たやつが見たと言えばいい。しかし来ないは証明できないぜ。全員が来ない、見てないといったところで、全員が見てないところでこっそり来たことを否定はできない。つまり悪魔の証明ってやつだ。
Right. So here, now we're establishing more of, well, this, the devil's proof, right? Where Ryukishi really wants you to think about all this, because that's what we've been doing throughout the entire playthrough. How did Beatrice get to the island? Where did she come from? All we know is that she just appeared. In the Rose Garden, she met with Maria, she met with Eva, and then after going inside, she met with Kiria. And that's it. That's all we know. But where did she come from? Now, I've speculated that Beatrice does have a home or something on the island itself. That she's always been on the island. Mainly somewhere in the forest. Now, my guess is that there is some shrine or something, some hut or whatever in the forest. And that leads to some underground area. And then that's where other shit happens. Which was one of my predictions that I had when we were playing through Higurashi for the first time. Where I was like, what if there's like some secret underground like shrine, and that's where all the sacrifices are taking place. And to an extent I was correct. But that was more with like the clinic instead of in the main shrine area. But either way. So where did Beatrice come from? And I've never really thought about it. At least so far in chapter 2, we've had her appear out of kind of nowhere. She just materializes herself before whomever she wants to speak to. Like Shannon was in the hallway for the first time. I think she was like dusting. And then Beatrice appears before her and she makes her the offer of like, hey, I can give you the love you want. Just do this thing for me. She met with Kanon in the garden at some point. And then she had tea with Shannon as well on the beach during one of her days off or something. So it could be that she just materializes herself out of nowhere. It could be that she is like a roaming ghost of some kind. We know in chapter 1 she would appear just as a set of butterflies. And that's what happened on the first night when Shannon went missing. Where she was, you know, she came back to the mansion, and instead of being back in the guest house area, she went to Goda. Goda was like, hey, go do this thing real quick, make sure all the windows are locked. And as she was walking around, instead of leaving, she saw the golden butterflies, and that's how she became one of the targets for the first massacre. So when she met Beatrice, it's implied that she met Beatrice because she just saw the golden butterflies. So it's a little interesting because I haven't really thought too much about how she came to be. As in, like, how is she appearing? So, if she does exist, then she probably just has something on the island that binds her to it. We know that there was a mirror in that cliff shrine that used to belong to some other deity or whatever that was suppressing Beatrice's powers, and that got destroyed by Shannon. So, it makes you wonder where she came from, or how is she materializing herself? So I guess we'll find out more as the story goes on, obviously. But here, they themselves are trying to argue, did she come by boat or something? As far as we know, she didn't. As far as we know, she just kind of came out of nowhere, but maybe she did come by boat. Or a different type of ferry. Anyway. It'd be simple to prove that devils exist. All you have to do is meet a devil. But it is impossible to prove that devils don't exist. Just by saying that no one has ever met a devil, you can't deny the possibility that they're hiding away somewhere humans can't go. You can't deny the existence of aliens for exactly the same reason. Until humanity searches the whole space and can show perfectly that aliens don't exist, you can't be sure that they don't exist. And it is definitely impossible for us to ever check the entirety of space for the existence of aliens. Therefore, while there may be a number of ways to prove that aliens do exist, it will always be impossible to show proof that denies their existence. Right.
となれば、僕たちが乗ってきた船以外の船で来たかどうかなんて、議論しても無駄な問題ということになるね。
Yeah.
僕たちと一緒の船にはいなかった。
Yeah, so instead of focusing on the could'ves, they're focusing on the facts that they know. They're like, we all came by boat. She wasn't there with us. So.
それだけが事実で、それ以外の方法で、とにかくこの島に訪れたことになる。
そうね。どうやって来たかなんて、議論の必要はないかもしれない。肝心なのは、現にこの屋敷に今いて、私たちと晩餐を共にする気がないという事実よ。
整理しよ
う。She's here, but she doesn't want to have dinner with us. What a concern to have.
今この島には、後ろ宮家18人以外に、もう一人客がいる。そしてそいつは、兄貴も夏日姉さんも知らない客だってんだな。
知りません。何の話だかもわかりません。
お前は少し黙っていなさい。頭痛に触る。妻の言う通りだ。私にはお前たちが何の話をしているのかさっきからさっぱりだ。
What a fucking line, dude. Shut up or your headaches will get worse anyway. Yeah, she's right.
じゃあ答えは一つしかないわ。
What a fucking asshole.
お父様が呼んだのよ。今日の親族会議のために。
親族会議に？だから何のために？
そんなの知らないわよ。兄さんが知ってたらそれを問い詰めようって思ってたのよ。
えわ、予算か。クラス兄さんは知らんと言うとる。つまり話はこうや。お父さんが肖像画の魔女にそっくりの客人をこっそり招いた。それにローザさんが出会い、マリアちゃんが出会い、そしてキリエさんもあった。
Yeah, he's the least misogynistic one of the bunch.
今はそこまでや。わしらに言いたいことがあるんなら、とっとと姿を現せばええ。挨拶もなしに引きこもってるっちゅうんはどないなわけなんや。ってことなんや。
親族会議なんか花から関心のない親父が新しい愛人をこっそり呼びつけたってわけか？
Oh my god.
理想の魔女様のおべべを着せてよ。そう決着するには今日という日は意味を持ちすぎてるぜ。
理由は一つしかない。親族会議に加わるためよ。お父様の遺産について何かの権利を主張する気でいるのよ。
Right, like she couldn't have any other reason. Like killing all of you. She must be here because she wants the inheritance.
バカバカしい。当主様に愛人などと汚らわしいものなどおりません。
お前は黙っていると言っている。私はこの屋敷でずっと親父殿と過ごしているが、そんな話は聞いたこともない。最大限理解を示したとして、何十年も昔の愛人との間に隠し子がいたとして、それを親父殿が探し出し、今日という日に呼びつけたと、こう言いたいのかね？
I genuinely thought he was gonna slap her when he said I told you to be quiet and they were gonna cut to that. Like a sound effect or something. Just like how Ava slaps Maria constantly.
あなた、お父様にそんなものがいるわけがありません。尊い後宮の血が愛人ごときに。先ほどから数人が見たと自称しているに過ぎません。幻想妄想白昼夢に決まっています。あるいはこれも夫を陥れるための皆さんの何らかの芝居なのですか？何の芝居だってのよ。芝居だって言うならそっちでしょうが。
Right, so now here's where things kind of start to fall apart between the family. Because goddamn, dude, like imagine if there really was a like another child in the family. That would obviously fuck everyone up, because we already have Jessica, who's technically the next heir, and by technically I mean her husband is going to be the next heir of the Ushinomiya family. Unless, I believe, George gets married first. If that's the case, I believe they can speed up the transfer to George's family, like his branch. It's been a bit, so I don't remember off the top of my head. But what if there is someone else to lay claim to all the gold? According to them, like, they're all just nervous that that's even a possibility. First, they don't even know who she is, and now she's also like a VIP. So obviously they're all gonna be pretty fucking mortified. And especially now that, you know, Natsuhi doesn't know who she is, Ava doesn't know who she is, like they're all so fucking confused as to who this person could be. At least in terms of relating to the Ushinomiya family inheritance. But anyway.
よせよ姉貴。ちょいと暴力的な言い方だが、夏日さんの言う通りではある。
She might be a bit over vehement.
キリエは姿を見たが、俺は見てない。姉貴もだ。だがローザは見た。
And remember, Neki is like Aniki, but for a sister.
しかしってことは、いるってことになる。いるを証明している連中が存在する以上、いるで直ちに決着だ。悪魔の証明の逆パターンってわけだな。それに、俺も会いたいんだよ。そして、一体当家に何の御用かと直接問いただしたい。
それについては私も同感だ。六軒島へ何の御用かぜひお尋ねしたいものだ。
白々しいこと言わないで。狙いは一つよ。お父様の遺産を狙ってるのよ。相続問題に明るい弁護士に今後の作戦を練らせるべきよ。お母様と同格の権利を愛人が主張した場合、私たちの取り分はかっきり半分さらわれることになる。
ちょっとみんな待って。源氏さんがもうじき来るわ。彼は何でも知ってる。きっと私たちの疑問に答えてくれるわ。それまでそういう話はなしにしましょう。
Jeez. Like, we understand how, you know, jeez. Yeah, Ava. Jeez. For some reason, I was confusing Ava with Rosa for a second. I was like, was that her name? I keep forgetting. I keep getting them jumbled up in my head for some reason. But anyway. Just look at what Ava is just complaining about. There's only one thing she could be after. Father's inheritance. And I mean, she's not wrong. She has come to claim the inheritance. But that's because it's her right. We should work out our future plans with a lawyer who's hot on inheritance. Like, that's all she gives a fuck about. It's so funny. Because remember, if Beatrice hadn't been introduced as this mysterious new element to the island situation, currently Ava would be arguing with all the other brothers and sisters. Or the other, you know, everyone else here, all the other siblings, about this exact same shit.
さあ子供たち、悪いけれど大人はちょっと込み入った話をしないといけない。ゲストハウスへ戻っていなさい。
Rosa yelled at the children, slightly overcome with emotion. The children didn't understand why they were suddenly being yelled at this time, but Ava and the rest realized it's too late. They were talking so bluntly about the filthy topic of their inheritance right in front of the children. Of course they wouldn't want their children to remain, so they all immediately agreed with Rosa's plan.
そうやな。ローザさんの言う通りや。ジョージ、いとこみんなでゲストハウスに戻ってるんや。いとこ同士仲良く遊ぶんやで。
ジョージ、言われた通りになさい。いとこみんなを連れて今すぐ出ていくのよ。
She's so fucking heated regarding this.
ちょっと待ってよ母さん。僕たちはまだ食事も終えていない。
デザートもまだ来てない。
デザートはゴーダさんにゲストハウスに運ばせます。だから出て行きなさい。
ジェシカ、ここから先は大人の話し合いです。行きなさい。
わかったよ。まだ食いかけだってのによ。
ってことは俺だけ例外ってことはないよな。
理解してくれてありがとう、バトラ君。でもあなたラッキーよ。
どうして？
私も出て行けるなら出て行きたいもん。
違いねえぜ。大人は大人で遺産をめぐって楽しい一家団らんをお楽しみくださいってんだ。
私も席を外しましょう。どうやら今夜は私の出番はなさそうだ。
Huh? At any rate, it appears my turn will not come tonight. Now that could either mean his turn to move in chess, his turn to be used as a doctor, or he will not be killed tonight. And he knows it. Nanjo quietly rose to his feet. From his seat in the farthest corner, he had been calmly watching the whole discussion without butting in. Surely that reaction of his was very adult, just what you'd expect of a calm old gentleman. When Nanjo rose from his seat, it ended up encouraging the others who were supposed to leave. The children noisily rose from their seats, and as they hurried into the hallway, the servants returned.
遅くなって申し訳ございません。源氏をお呼びいたしました。
お屋敷の中の戸締まりの確認に行っておりましたもので、申し訳ございません。
さあ、子供たちはゲストハウスへ。ゴーダさん、申し訳ないのだけれど、子供たちの分のデザートをゲストハウスへ運んでくれるかしら。
は、よろしいのですか？
It seemed Golda wasn't amused to see the dinner he'd worked so hard on interrupted like this. He sent Natsuhi a look as though asking her whether that was really okay.
ローザさんの言う通りにするように。それから私たちにデザートの配膳は不要です。呼び出しがあるまで食堂には近づかないように。これは他の使用人にも伝えること。いいですね。
はい。
Alright, hold on again. And... God, I hate restream so fucking much. Anyway, I mean, like I said, we'll keep going. We're gonna keep going for like another 40, 50 minutes or so. But we're just gonna be having interruptions all fucking night, it seems. God, this fucking sucks so much. And it's about to happen again. Jeez. And looks like we're back. Okay, so again, sorry about this, with just all this shit happening. Again, mainly because of Restream, that's why we're having these issues. Probably later on when we stream more Super Robot Wars in the morning. So in like 7 hours. I'm gonna maybe not be using a Restream, we might just do a test stream directly to Twitch and see if we have any issues. So unfortunately, those watching on Kick will not be able to maybe enjoy the SRW stream unless you come and watch on Twitch, which I would recommend doing so anyways. And vice versa. In case it ends up working better on Kick, then we'll probably stream more on Kick than on Twitch, which would suck to do, but either way. Let's continue.
かしこまりました。
さあさあ皆さん参りましょうかな。マリアさんもこれ以上お母さんを困らせてはいけません。
マリアもベアとの話する。やだやだやだ。
マリアちゃん、僕たちにゲストハウスでベアトリーチェの話を聞かせてくれないかい？ぜひ魔女の話を聞きたいんだね。
ジョージ兄さんは本当にうめえぜ。感動するぜ。
本当に子持ちじゃねえのかよ。手慣れすぎだぜ。
George's words had completely restored Maria's good mood, and now she took the initiative, telling the others to head on to the guest house. It looked like Goda didn't like being kicked out himself, but he couldn't disobey Natsuhi, so he left the room with Battler and the rest, closing the door.
ご用は何でしょうか、皆様。
あるわ。たっぷりと。それも誰から質問するかくじ引きが欲しいくらいよ。
だが誰が一番のくじを引こうとも最初にする質問は同じだと思うがね。
違いねえな。源氏さん、正直に答えてくれ。今貴賓室にいるベアトリーチェってのは何者なんだ
And they leave us in fucking suspense. And now it's 10 o'clock. Now, what I'm most concerned with is how they're gonna handle the letter and what it says. If I'm not mistaken, because again, it's been a little bit, but when Beatrice showed up in this second chapter, you had Maria crying, Beatrice shows up, and she gives Maria a letter and tells her, hey, when dinner's over, read this out loud. And then she gave one to Rosa as well and told her the same thing. Okay, read this after dinner. I don't remember off the top of my head if she only gave the letter to Rosa and not Maria this time, as it's been a little bit. But there is a letter that's supposed to be read after dinner. And normally, at least in the first chapter, that's what kind of led to this like huge discussion. They all ate, they all had dinner, everything was fine. But we're kind of speeding things along here. Where now we're skipping the dessert portion, for example. And then when Maria's like, oh, by the way, I got a letter from Beatrice, everyone's like, what the fuck are you talking about? And then they see that it's got an official like seal in the center. They read it, and then they all kind of lose their shit. Where they're basically told, well, actually, we can read it. We've got the letter, I'm pretty sure. Here. We do not. but that would be in the first chapter, where she's basically like, hey, by the way, I'm going to collect my inheritance. If you can't solve my riddle, you're all fucked. And then they all start losing their shit, and they start blaming each other, and then they do everything except focus on the epitaph. But either way, let's continue. Hideyoshi's claim that advertising doubled the taste was apparently right. After being chased out to the guest house, the kids and Nanjo had gathered in the cousin's room and were eating the cake that Kumasawa had brought for dessert. It was both wonderful and high class, topped with lavish amounts of cream and decorated deliciously with fruits. But delicious as it was, it didn't taste quite as good for some reason.
ゴーダさんの脳書きがないと味ってずいぶん落ちるんだな。
脳書きを求めようにも熊沢のばあちゃんに聞いた日にゃこのケーキの原料もサバってことになっちまうぜ。
ほんと？サバからケーキってできる？
ええ、このケーキもサバの絞り汁に小麦粉と卵を混ぜて焼き上げると。
Now, I remember the first time. I don't remember what the cake was supposedly made of, but it had two sauces, and one was sweet and one was sour. And when they asked like what it was made of or what the sauce was made of, she said, yeah, it was a sauce made of mackerel. And I went on this whole like small rant on the history of ketchup. And how it could be that bitter sauce could be made of mackerel. Because they tried, you know, ages ago to recreate fish sauce from the East in England. And they spent years trying like everything from, you know, making like a sauce out of mushrooms, like fermenting them to fermenting fish. And it got to the point where they just settled on ketchup by accident. But anyway, like you'll have to watch the fucking dinner like stream of that on YouTube or something. But here she is mentioning it again with mackerel juice.
それが本当ならすごいね。お父さんの店の新メニューにサバケーキとか登場するかもしれないよ。
サバケーキ。
サバって栄養満点でヘルシーっぽいイメージがあるしよ。女性とかお年寄りに人気が出たりしてな。俺は食わねえけどよ。
女はそんなゲテモノは食わねえぜ。
年寄りも遠慮したいところですな。
おいしいんですけどね。
Masawa was really cheering up the mood with her classic mackerel jokes, but the sound of the downpouring rain kept turning their attention towards the mystery guests. In the end, they showered Maria with questions again, since she was the only person here to have met Beatrice.
まさかあの話が本当だったとはね。
その口ぶりだとマリアが魔女に会ってたって話は信じてなかったまでにも初耳じゃねってことらしいな。
ああ、夢見がちなお年頃のよくあるおとぎ話くらいに思ってたぜ。
いる！ベアトリーチェはいる！毎年親族会議に来るたびにマリアは会って一緒に遊んでた。
そうですね。ベアトリーチェ様は普段はお姿をお見せになりませんけど、心が綺麗で素直な方の前にはひょっこり姿を現していたずらをすることもあるそうですからね。
Now, here she's describing Beatrice to be kind of like a goddess or something, to some extent. Because, like, that's normally what you tell someone regarding, like, a god or something. Where, it's like, oh, Beatrice will appear before you if you have a clean and honest heart, right? It's like, oh, the Kitsune god will appear before you if you have a clean heart or honest thoughts and the like. But instead, we know Beatrice will appear before you Oh, OBS crashed again. We know Beatrice will appear before you, not because you have a clean heart and she wants to be nice to you. We know that she will appear before you because she wants to corrupt you with something. She wants to make you an offer you can't refuse, for the most part. And that's why she's appearing before you, the individual who has a pure heart. There is something you want, and there is something she can give you, and she will give it to you because she can then corrupt it, whatever it might be. Anyway. Beatrice referred to that character in the fairy tale about the Rokenjima witch. And this is the other painting that I was referring to a bit ago. But this painting is the one where she's in her full dress. And I've shown off the full painting before, so I'm not going to do it again. But here she's wearing her dress instead of whatever skimpy outfit she's wearing here. And what might as well... like, come on. Anyway. Beatrice referred to that character in the fairy tale about the Rokenjima witch. To keep Ginzo in a good mood, the family and servants acted as though they believed in the witch of his delusions. That's how Rokenjima's fairy tale, or maybe ghost story, had come into being. To the family members who knew that backstory, the fairy tale of the Golden Witch wasn't something to be taken too seriously. However, they were never able to say that out loud in front of Ginzo. Because of that, the legend of the witch carried a lot more weight to someone like young Maria, who didn't know the story of how it had come into being. That's why Maria believed in the legend of the witch. She accepted it entirely. That was only natural for an imaginative girl who believed in witches. So people had avoided saying things that would betray her dream. On the contrary, they had worked together to say and do things that would help liven up her dreams without her knowing.
だから、マリアちゃんがベアトリーチェにもらったお菓子と言って僕らに見せびらかすことがあっても、多分誰かがそういうことにして、マリアちゃんの手提げの中にこっそり飴玉でも忍ばせたのだろうって思ってた。
私も昔に2度か3度そういうふりをして。こっそりお菓子を置いてあげたことがあります。おそらく熊沢さんにも、使用人の皆さんや後宮家の皆さんも一度や二度はあるんじゃないでしょうか。
Right, so this is another one of those devil's proof situations where they're like, here's some hard proof that she does exist, and it's the candy itself. So as we know, in that scene, you had Rosa, you had Beatrice, and you had Maria. Beatrice tells Maria to close her eyes, so Maria technically doesn't know whether or not this happened. But then Beatrice proceeds to throw the crumpled up and stomped on candy into the air. It flips twice, butterflies come around, and then restore it back to what it used to look like. It comes back down, it lands on Beatrice's hand, and then Beatrice hands it over to Maria. Rosa saw all of it happen before her, but she can't believe it. Because of it being magical, basically. She saw magic happen before her eyes. She couldn't believe it. Meanwhile, Maria is just free to accept it. For all we know, imagine the exact same scenario, right? So Beatrice tells Maria to cover her eyes, and then she just reaches into her pocket, pulls out another exact candy, and puts the old one away, and is like, here you go, I restored it with magic, right? Technically that is a plausibility. For all we know, when she threw the candy up into the air, she pulled another candy out from her bag or something, and put the other one back in that bag without her realizing it, and then handed it over to Maria. The whole throwing the candy up in the air was to distract Rosa or something. Again, we don't know. As far as we've been shown, she restored the piece of candy. But this is basically what they're getting at, like with this small discussion. That's like, hey, what if, like, where did this candy come from? We've done this shit before. Like, we've snuck candy in other parts of the mansion to make it seem, you know, like it's magic or whatever. This stuff that you do with kids.
無邪気な小さい子が喜ぶなら、口裏を合わせてお菓子を置いてくこともあるか。
Right.
ってことは、ジョージの兄貴なんかだいぶやってそうだな。
まあね。
It'd probably be boorish to admit to such a thing out loud. George admitted it while being extremely wary that Maria didn't find out.
つまり、サンタクロースみたいなもんか。
Oh no. Don't say that in front of Maria.
子供の夢を守るために、両親がグルで嘘をついて、寝静まったこの枕元にプレゼントを置いていたと。
子供の夢って守ってあげたいし。私は当然サンタなんていないってとっくに知ってるわけだけど、もし覚めなくてもいい夢だったなら一生信じていたかったぜ。
世の中は世知辛いばかりだと知ってしまうからこそ、大人はせめて子供の綺麗な夢を守ってやりたいと。
ベアトリーチェはいるの。
I genuinely thought she was going to say, Santa exists. He exists. And she was now going to argue that Santa is real. But, of course, she's going to go back to saying that Beatrice is here.
へえ、いますとも。ベアトリーチェ様はおりますよ。この前もですね、サバを干して紅茶の出汁に使おうとしておりましたら、そこへひょっこり。
まあ、つまり、こういう調子だったはずなんだけどね。
つまり、マリアを除けば、誰も信じてなかったはずの魔女ってわけだ。
少し言葉が足りないね。
But yes.
信じてなかったんじゃない。信じさせてあげようとしたんだ。
So, this is about not betraying a child's innocence. But Santa doesn't exist in reality. If you don't want kids to be all disappointed when they learn the truth, you'd be better off not showing them that dream in the first place. Is the fact that I think like this proof that I'm still a long way from becoming a full adult? The true nature of the Irokenjima witch was finally starting to take shape in Battler's mind. However, their current situation overrode this understanding. And in fact, it completely overturned its very premise.
という認識だったはずの魔女のベアトリーチェ様が実際に現れちまったと。そういうことか。しかもだ。おじさんたちの騒ぎを見る限り、どうも招かれた客でもないらしい。こりゃ面白そうな話だぜ。
ベアトリーチェという女性が実在しないという前提は実は存在しない。ルドルフおじさんも言っていた悪魔の証明そのものだよ。ベアトリーチェと名乗る女性の存在を僕たちは誰も知らなかった。でもだからといってそれがベアトリーチェが実在する可能性を否定できるわけじゃない。
南條先生はじいさまとの付き合いが長いですよね。
一時期親族会議でクラウスさんたちに随分と聞かれた話ですな。その昔金蔵さんにベアトリーチェという愛人がいて、その隠し子がいるのではないかという話です。
なるほどな。親父たちは遺産分配で頭がいっぱいだ。そこに愛人の娘なんてのが現れれば面倒なことになるのは火を見るより明らかってわけだ。
クラウスさんたちも最初は源氏さんに聞かれたのでしょう。しかし源氏さんは金蔵さんに忠誠を誓う側近で、多分私よりも金蔵さんが心を許す親友です。源氏さんは多分何も語らなかったのでしょう。それで次に古い友人である私の方に話を聞こうということになったのでしょうな。
Now, one thing that I've been thinking about is, as we know, there is a fan game that was made for Higurashi, which was called Tomitake Princess. Was it Princess? Was it just Puri? Tomitake Puri? I don't remember. But Tomitake Princess. And that was basically just a joke game where Keiichi tries to spend time in an island full of Tomitake, and they all have different personalities. If one doesn't exist, I hope there's a game out there where it's all of the characters from Umineko trying to prove that Santa Claus is real, or something. Or trying to prove that Santa isn't real. Or they come to the island or something for Christmas. And then they end up having like a discussion with Maria, who is like, Santa's real, Santa's real. And Battler being like, there's no way Santa Claus exists. Santa Claus is not real. Santa Claus could not deliver the presents. Santa Claus is not here. And then Maria just being like, but ooh, you know, fucking Santa's real. Santa does exist. He gave me this last year. And then it's all about how Battler has to learn the fucking meaning of Christmas or something. Now that'd be really fucking dumb. But very funny. Anyway.
で、結論として南條先生。
おりました。いえ、私は会ったことはありませんぞ。ですが、そういう女性と交際があったと金蔵さんから聞かされたことはありました。相当昔にお亡くなりになられたそうで。
Hold on. I'm trying to remember. That's what it was. What if... So, here he's saying that he did have a relationship like that with her. But she died. What if said relationship wasn't necessarily the type that we're thinking of? By that I mean that, you know, that Kinzo spent time with her, you know, had sex with her, and so on and so forth, right? Like a normal relationship. What if it was all, like, love in the Petrarchan sense, where... I've talked about this before, I can't remember on what stream, but about, like, Petrarchan conventions. If you don't know, the short of it is, in, like, the 16, or was it the 1600s? I believe so. There was this whole thing going on in the English court, where there was a thing known as the Petrarchan lover. And that's basically the general, like, ideal woman that a person would aspire to marry or to love. And the way they would describe Petrarchan lovers were basically just a fair-skinned blonde woman with, like, you know, blue eyes, right? A thin, fair, blonde woman. That's what a Petrarchan lover was. And there would be a lot of Petrarchan sonnets that would exist during this time, a sonnet being a poem, and they would be dedicated to these people. It got to the point where a lot of writers at the time I'm trying to remember the specific term for it, but there is a type of love that you would express towards these individuals. I'll look it up later. But there's a type of love that you would express for these individuals where you would pour your heart and soul out to them, but know that you can never be with them. So essentially, you would write a poem to someone. You would tell them how beautiful they were, how much you loved this about them or that about them, how their eyes were like this, and so on and so forth. And that you could only love them from a distance. You could never love them directly because that could never happen. You could never be married to them. You could never be in a literal relationship with this individual. So there was a lot of sonnets that existed at that time. It is, believed to have come about because these individuals needed money. So they would no, it's not a gape. So they would write these poems specifically to their patrons, to basically tell them like, oh my god, you're so beautiful. You're so beautiful. I wish I could be with you. I wish I could love you. But I love you so much that I know that can never happen. So I will love you from a distance. So I'm wondering if that's the type of relationship that is being expressed here with Kinzo and Beatrice. Let's see, hold on. I'll try to... It's unrequited love, specifically, but there is another word used for it. But in general, yeah, like the Petrarchan lover. Anyway, it's something that I'll have to just look up again later on, because I haven't had to think about this since like university. But anyway, so I'm wondering if that's what they're referring to here, where Kinzo had a relationship with a woman like that, or if he literally did, like, have a relationship with Beatrice. As we know from what Beatrice has told us directly, she would always try to make contact with Kinzo, but he could never see her. By that I mean, like, after she was imprisoned on the island. We know that beforehand, Kinzo really wanted to meet with Beatrice. He really wanted to meet her at some point. He wanted to make a deal with her. He wanted to do anything to meet with her. So he tried all these rituals and they all failed. Until one day she's like, you know what, why not? I'll answer his call. He is magically tone deaf. Like, he can't see me. But he's able to cast magic to some extent. So he can perform magic but not see the results. So she would answer his call. She was able to make a contract with him, and he was only able to see her like one time. And then afterwards, he has never been able to see her. As we've been told in this chapter, Beatrice would be in his room, or he would be in the garden. It happened in this chapter where Kinzo was crying in the garden. He tells Kanon to just leave. And then he's like, oh, Beatrice, oh, why can't I see you again? He has his little soliloquy out in the rain or whatever. And Beatrice is standing like right next to him. And he can't see her at all. And she's just like sad about it. Right? So maybe that's the relationship that they're referring to, but I'm fucking rambling at this point. Anyway. It's probably about to be explained.
死んだ。その間に子供がいたとか。
それはわかりません。ただ金蔵さんはベアトリーチェを蘇らせるために研究。普通は愛人を失い忘れがたみがいたならばそちらにその分の愛情を注ぐものです。ですから金蔵さんとベアトリーチェの間に子供はいなかったろうと私たちは自然に考えました。
ん？ってことは、それも悪魔の証明になっちまうな。
なるぜ。愛人との間に子供がいなかったことは証明不能。現にこうして現れた以上、いたってことになっちまうわけか。
少し暴力的な理論だね。 後宮家の遺産問題でトラブルが生じていることを聞きつけ、何者かがおじい様の大昔の愛人関係を知り、それを装って遺産問題に食い込もうとしているとかの方が現実的だよ。
Right. So, remember, putting yourself in their shoes. They're all trying to think of a way to disprove that this person exists, right? We as the readers have are experiencing dramatic irony as we know that Beatrice is quote-unquote real, right? Whether or not you believe she exists, we know that the Beatrice that's on this island right now is supposed to be the one from Purgatory, from the devil's, or from the witch's tea room, or wherever she was beforehand at the end of chapter 1, in the post-chapter discussion, or in the post-chapter tea ceremony that we had. We know that it's supposed to be that Beatrice being here, but all of them don't know this. Maria knows it's Beatrice. All of them are saying that it's not Beatrice because she fucking died years ago. So how can someone that died be here right now, present with everyone? So now they're thinking that it's either the child itself or someone impersonating Beatrice. And we've had like 6 people say this. They're like, how do you know, or, well, even in like the chat when Billy would show up every now and again, he'd be like, how do you know that it wasn't someone else dressed up as Beatrice? And it's like, well, that doesn't make any fucking sense, in my opinion. But that is like apparently an argument that other people have made online when reading through Umineko, where they're like, what if it is someone else? What if it is another individual dressed as Beatrice? That there was even like theories claiming that it was not Ava, but that it was like, what if it was Jessica dressed up as Beatrice, right? Like they're both blonde, for example, she just had to change her hair or something, talk differently, who knows? What if it was someone else that was hired to look like like Beatrice, to make Maria claim that she saw Beatrice that day in the rose garden, right? What if it was another one of the servants being told to dress like that? Not necessarily the ones that we have here, but someone else that might have been hired specifically for this, so that they give a letter that Kinzo created, that he wrote, to continue the farce of Beatrice being alive, right? Or Beatrice being real. So now here we're having all of them discuss this as like, well, is she real? If she is, why would she be here? Is it really Beatrice, or is it someone else pretending to be her just to get more of the inheritance, which is what it all comes down to.
現実的ではある。しかし、本当に彼女が隠し子で。しかもその上、じい様に顧みられなくて、孤独に生き、復讐に帰ってきたって設定も否定はできねえよな。
復讐？なんだよそれ。
ああ、すまんすまん。男なんだよ。ついつい面白そうな方に脚色しちまうぜ。
Oh, humans like to do that as well.
妙なドラマの見過ぎだな。
Normally that might have come off as a light joke. But the joke had landed after an uninvited mystery guest calling herself Beatrice had marched in on the day of the family conference where the bloody argument that the inheritance had become took center stage. There was no way Battler's joke would be welcomed with laughter, so it was a really big help when Nanjo laughed brightly to calm everyone down.
なるほどなるほど。それはなかなか面白そうですな。そんな筋書きの小説をぜひ読んでみたいものです。
He opens his eyes and looks at the screen. I would love to read a novel that covers this exact same topic right now. That'd be a lot of fun. And then he closes them again.
まあ、現実にはそんなことはできねえと思う。何しろよ。今、この島には、ひふみ。18人もいるんだぜ。
Q, yeah. GQ? 19.
妙なことをすればすぐにでも取り押さえられちまう。それに、台風のおかげで島から逃げ出すこともできない。つまり、とんでもない事件を起こそうにも、どうにもならねえってことさ。
If anyone tried to commit some really fucking weird crime tonight, they'd all be screwed, man. They'd be caught in the morning. There's only like 20 of us here, right? If someone were to commit mass murder, I mean, we all know who we'd point the finger to.
同感だね。
Or point the finger at.
退路の断たれた袋小路で、しかも十分怪しまれているような状況下で、そんな恐ろしい復讐劇なんかとてもできるとは思わないね。
でしょうな。ならば姿など現さずに暗躍しての復讐の方が現実味があるというものです。堂々と姿を現して仇討ちなど時代劇の中でしか考えられませんな。
He then looks at the camera again for like 5 seconds.
わからねえぜ。
Hmm.
復讐ってのは感情でやるもんだ。理屈じゃねえぜ。それこそ差し違えてでもなんて考えたら、別に警察も人数も退路がなくても何も怖くはないかもしれねえぜ。
大丈夫だよ、ジェシカちゃん。僕たちが想像するような物騒なことは何も起きないよ。
遺産をめぐっておじさんたちがバトルロイヤルってのが物騒なことじゃねえってんならな。
そうだよな。父さんもルドルフおじさんも体格いいし、エヴァおばさんなんか格闘技習ってんでしょ、大丈夫だよね。
Jessica didn't say it out loud, but she vaguely noticed that her own father stood in opposition to all the other siblings on the inheritance issue. They usually played nice in front of the children, but when that pretense was lifted away, like it had been at dinner, the result would be a tumultuous uproar. After realizing this, it was only natural for Jessica to be frightened at the thought that her parents might get caught up in some kind of trouble and become human sacrifices for something terrifying.
だよな。
That is a literary term known as foreshadowing.
ジョージの兄貴の言う通りだぜ。何も起こらねえよ。魔女様の名前を語ろうとも、魔法も使えない人間の女が一人で何ができるってんだ。
I agree, Battler. What can a single human woman who can't even do magic do? The sudden, creepy laugh made all of them jump. And when they realized the strange laugh was coming from Maria, they were shocked again.
そうなんだ。それがバトラの認識なんだね。
何かだよ。気色悪い声で笑うんじゃねえぜ。
バトラはベアトリーチェの存在をとりあえずは認めてる。19人目の客人程度には認めてる。でもそこまでだね。19人目のベアトリーチェが魔女であることは認めてないね。
突然何を言い出すかと思えばそりゃそうだろ。魔女なんているわけがねえ。それを語る人間の女しかありえねえだろうが。
あれおかしいよバトラー。それは悪魔の証明だよ。魔女なんているわけがねえ。でもそれはバトラが魔女に会ったことがないというだけで魔女の存在を否定することにはならないね。
She's got you by the balls.
そうだな。確かにそうだ。 魔女がいねえを証明することはできない。しかし、証明はできなくても主張はできる。魔女はいねえという俺の主張だ。
See, this would be called hypocrisy.
どうして魔女はいないなんて証明できないくせに主張できるの？
そんなものはいねえからだよ。
それで QED？ 何の証拠も根拠もなく証明終了？
Hold on, QED. That was, yeah, it was a quod erat demonstratum. Quod erat demonstrandum. Holy shit, demonstrandum. Quod erat demonstrandum. That which has to be demonstrated. That's what it was.
無知が自分の浅が草を棚上げする時の典型例。暴力的思考停止だね。
Now, do remember, we've been kind of shown that Maria has acted as a sort of vessel or, you know, voice for Beatrice in the past. Because she's like 9 years old. There is no way she would know what QED even fucking means. Not only because it's Latin, but also because she's Japanese and she's 9 years old. Like they don't teach this shit in elementary school. Like they're not having philosophical, like Western philosophical debates in the 4th grade or whatever. They're having like playtime, and they're learning how to make curry during the like summer trips. That's what they're learning. They're not learning about QED or magic and witches. Technically, Maria's learning about magic and witches, and that's why she stands out even amongst her own peers. But this is just kind of like showing you that the Maria that we're talking to right now is not the same Maria that we've been speaking to, I guess, throughout the entire chapter so far. Because she's being a little, you know, she's being possessed, quote unquote. Well, that's how I picture it every now and again. Where it's like, when in chapter 1, it would be like, Maria would just be like, ooh, you know, like with her thumb in her mouth. And then someone would be like, huh, there's no way Beatrice would do this. Beatrice isn't fucking real. And then she pulls her thumb out of her fucking mouth, and her head, like, turns around, like, spins around a few times, and she's like, Beatrice is fucking real. She's fucking real, and I know she exists because magic is real. And she starts cackling like a possessed, like, doll or something. And then her mom will slap her in the head, and she'll go back to being like, you know, she'll go back to putting her thumb in her mouth and be like, ooh, what are you doing? Why are you hitting me? So she's like, this is like the other Maria that we're encountering right now.
となりゃ、答えは一つだぜ、マリア。魔女側の反証しかねえってことだろう。これまた悪魔の証明だ。連れてくりゃ話は早い。この場合は、ベアトリーチェと名乗るご婦人が、お星様がキラキラ飛び散るような華麗な魔法をステッキででも披露して、人間には不可能なことをやってみせればいいってことだろ。
ほら、お二人とも落ち着いてくださいな。
Kumasawa noticed the atmosphere between them was getting worse and tried to calm them. It seemed as though Battler quickly realized that he wasn't acting like an adult, but Maria's expression didn't loosen. Right, so right now, he just challenged the witch. All she has to do is show us something that's impossible for humans to do, right? Just like how, in the first chapter, the first murder happened, and then Battler was like, well, anyone could have done this. Anyone could have unlocked the shed or whatever the fuck it was, like that little part by that room by the garden. Anyone could have unlocked this room, killed everyone here, ran the lawnmower through their faces, and then left. And locked it again, and then added that sigil in the front made of blood, or what? Well, they called it graffiti, but that graffiti in quote-unquote blood. Anyone could have done that. So then we had the second murder that happened where a door was opened, but not past the latch, like as much as the latch would allow them to, the chain. And then 2 people died. So how did they die? Who could have gone into that room and then shoved an ice pick through their foreheads? So he's doing the same shit again here. So we'll see how this plays out this time, though. As she laughed creepily, she kept staring at Battler.
マリアももうよせよ。機嫌直そうぜ。な。それが望みなら、ベアトリーチェはきっと見せてくれるよ。人間には不可能なこと。そしたらバトラも信じるんだよね。ベアトリーチェのこと。
おう。そいつを拝ましてくれたら、信じてやろうじゃねえか。
魔女とバトラの議論のチェスだね。チェックメイトされたら、バトラは魔女を信じる。
おお、洒落た例えだぜ。魔女が魔法を見せる。俺のキングにチェックをかける。俺は人間でも何らかの手段で再現可能だとイチャモンをつけてキングを逃がす。それができなきゃチェックメイトってのは確かにいい例えだ。
バトラ、チェスというのは相手も自分も同じ動きの駒を持ってる。だから相手の手も読める。でもね、相手の駒がバトラの駒よりさらに不思議な動きができることを、バトラは魔女のはずないからと、ベアトリーチェの動かす駒の動きを自分とどうせ同じだと決めつけている。でもね、悪いけど、バトラのチェスの相手は人間じゃない。魔女なの。人間にはさせない駒の動きができる。バトラは今、そこの認識を間違えているの。バトラは、キリエおばさんのチェス盤思考って好きでしょ？
I was about to say, this is gonna like completely trump over the chessboard thinking.
ああ。相手の立場に立っての思考術ってやつを気に入ってるぜ。
だからダメなの。相手は魔女なのに、バトラはそれを認めない。だから魔女のさせる手を理解できず、チェス盤思考が通じない。相手の認識を間違えている。チェス盤思考の一番最初の前提が崩れてる。
おお、そう来るかよ。
そなたは魔女とのチェスに勝てぬ。
その後のことはわかりません。
Okay. Now, normally we'd be going for a little while longer, but I think now would be a good stopping point for today.